In Ecuador, the 2025 presidential runoff elections is underway, in which more than 13.7 million voters are called to the polls. Tens of thousands of people from Serbia, Bosnia, and Kosovo mobilized for 3 consecutive days in support of the Serbian President Aleksandar Vucic. And Israeli forces shelled Al-Ahli based hospitals in Gaza City on Sunday, leaving the facilities entirely out of service. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. We start in Ecuador, where the 2025 presidential runoff is underway. Over 13.7 million Ecuadorians have headed to voting centers to exercise their right to vote, as the National Electoral Council latest report states after 1% turnout by early afternoon. Incumbent President Daniel Noboa and opposition candidate Luisa González are the contest in the presidency of Ecuador, following a first round in which they got almost a tie. This election date in Ecuador is taking place within the framework of a state of exception declared by the current administration due to the increase of violence in several provinces of the country. Ecuador's candidate for the vice presidency, Diego Borja, exercised his right to vote on this Sunday's presidential runoff elections. Accompanied by his family, the Ecuadorian economist cast his vote in a polling station in the capital city of Quito, where he reiterated the press and the people around him his support to the running mate, Luisa González. Borja also highlighted the peaceful atmosphere of the voting day despite the latest actions of the National Electoral Council. The candidate urged to respect the electoral results and additionally asked the Ecuadorian people to maintain their hope and their unity in favor of the nation's interests.
Venezuela's situation is extremely serious because there was a will to prevent Ecuadorians from exercising their right to vote. Here they made the excuse that there was not enough money, but then we found out that they even had the material and they were not allowed to exercise it. So these are acts of violation of the law, and evidently they are forms of fraud as well.
A message for all of Latin America that is watching you on TV. We need Ecuador in Latin America. Tell us about your plans for the region with this government.
Well, first of all, something very important is at stake here, the unity of the Ecuadorian people. Because here, beyond the revolution, a project of institutional, social, political reconstruction is at stake. And also for Latin America, an important project, because our will is a will of integration, of friendship, of respect for the law.
And on this topic, we have our special envoy to Ecuador, Jorge Gestoso, with more information. Hello, Jorge, do you hear me?
Yes, absolutely, and we are just counting the minutes that are left to be the closing of the session. It's 5 o'clock, the closing of the polls. We are talking about less than an hour and a half from now. The situation has been of denunciation of the decree of the President Daniel Noboa of declaring 7 provinces of the country like in the state of emergency, and the most important, the main indigenous organization called CONAIE in this country has issued a communique, and I'm going to try to translate it from Spanish. That was how upset was the reaction. It says, Noboa declared a supposed internal commotion in provinces where the votes are not favorable to him. The reason that he's saying that he stated that decree was because there are supposedly commotion, and they question absolutely that. They say that, and I continue to quote the words of the CONAIE. This strategy, authoritarian strategy, compromises gravely the integrity of the democratic system in Ecuador and put at risk the transparency of the vote. And continue. It says Novoa wants to grab the elections with the beneplácit of the National Electoral Council. We refuse this maneuver anti-democratic. On the case of the rival of the president candidate Novoa, we're talking about Luisa Gonzalez, she has said that they're expectant, and that using that word in Spanish, expectante, because they have serious doubts about the transparency of the process, and that's exactly what we are trying to look very closely, how it's going to develop the counting of the votes when in less than an hour and a half the polls close. 41% according to the National Electoral Vote, the National Electoral Council, I should say, was voting at midday, 41%, and there were 17,600,000 and something voters that was asked to vote because the vote here is mandatory. We get back to you now.
Thank you, Jorge, for the information. We'll be back with you as soon as we can. Thank you very much. And now we continue with our news on this topic. Daniel Noboa is beating that his promise to push forward the anti-crime initiatives begun during his first administration and to address power outages will ensure that his re-election. Daniel Noboa, as seen, current president of Ecuador, is the son of multimillionaire Álvaro Noboa Pontón. As president, he has used presidential decrees to militarize the streets and to facilitate the security of businessmen in the ports. Nevertheless, his administration has been marked by a multidimensional crisis with economic recession, high levels of insecurity, energy, and a political deficit. Hopes for their re-election violating constitutional statutes and failing to comply with electoral regulations to participate in the elections. In a desperate measure, Noboa declared a new state of exception, handed over security to U.S. mercenaries, militarized the northern and southern border in the middle of the electoral campaign under the pretext of fighting criminality. And now we go to Luisa Gonzalez, a 47-year-old lawyer and former assemblywoman, is seeking the presidency of Ecuador in the April 13 elections, supported by pollster placers at one of the electorate's 5 wards. Luisa Gonzalez is a lawyer and holds 2 master's degrees in senior management from the Institute of Alto Estudios Nacionales and International Economics from the University de Complutense of Madrid. As a member of the Citizens Revolution movement, she participated in the early elections of 2023. His government plans focus on 5 axes: justice for good living, security and order, economic well-being with equal opportunities, the fighting against corruption and ecological justice, and energy transition for a clean and sustainable future. Has expressed her commitment to the reveal needed for the people to generate decent employment, guaranteed access to health education, scholarship, and create the initiative young entrepreneurships. If she wins the elections, Gonzalez will become the first woman to become president of Ecuador, representing progressive social and left-wing forces. And we continue. Ecuadorian presidential candidate Luisa Gonzalez exercised her right to vote in the parish of Canuto Manabí. The presidential candidate for the Citizens Revolution Party points out that she will pay attention together with the other politician parties at the polling centers to guarantee that everything goes smoothly. However, Gonzalez denied certain irregularities and incidents in the electoral operation and noted that she will take a hit in to ensure that the democracy is guaranteed in the country. Meanwhile, she called on the public forces, the national police, and the armed forces not to intervene either in favor of or against any political party, but to guarantee the security of the citizens.
We are going to be expectant of how the elections develop today, but also ready to defend democracy. This state of exception violates a mandate of the Constitutional Court and violates our rights. They decree a state of exception while the political parties are united in the computation centers receiving the minutes. And they say that no mobilization is allowed. So we will be waiting for democracy to be guaranteed. And I call upon the public forces, the national police and the armed forces not to intervene for or against, but to guarantee democracy properly. Not to intervene in the counting of votes at the polls, but to guarantee the security of the Ecuadorian people, that is all.
And we continue these topics. With us is Ramon Mendez. He's a politics and scientist, and will be with us on this occasion for analyze what is going on these presidential elections in Ecuador. Welcome, Ramon. Can you hear me? Do you hear me well?
Yes, I hear you well.
Thank you very much. Well, as we heard, Luisa, I know we've been watching all through the days. Now let's start. Based on your opinion, how is the democracy in Ecuador? Actually, based on the denunciations that Luisa Gonzalez has made.
Correct. I think it's beyond opinion at this point. It is evident for both Ecuadorian and international observatories that democracy has been hindered. That is unquestionable at the moment. We just saw a couple of days ago, actually last night, the CNE, which is the national overlooker of the oversight of the elections, being barbed wired. We see the presence of the military be a little more, a little bit stronger than other times. We've seen that from the judiciary, the legislative, and of course the executive, the rules have not been kept, and they've been doing everything that they want to just in order to maintain power. We have seen that President Novoa, at the same time that he is a candidate, is doing both without actually giving up the power to their vice president, which is constitutionally mandated. So we've seen that democracy has been hindered and it has been hurt, and this is something that needs to be known in the world, and that other countries need to be aware of, not only aware of, but actually fighting to do something about it.
And based on it, also a state of exception was announced just hours before the presidential elections, and Luisa has announced this fact. What can you tell us about her denunciation of this state of exception?
Well, the state of exception has been a tool that President Novoa has been using constantly. It's getting old at this point, right? Yet we know that this is all done in order to make people not want to go and vote. So we've seen the reports of over 18 polling sites being changed at the last minute. And we've seen that here, where I'm currently at in New York, where the polling sites have been changing from election to election. Even from the first round to the second round, the polling sites have been changed. So we continue to see how many voters here in the diaspora, as well as in Ecuador, go to the regular polling sites just to find out that their polling site is somewhere else now, miles away, if not more. So we've been seeing this happening time and time again. State of exception or not, these things continue to happen.
Yeah, and also earlier, Gonzalez announced that she received intelligence reports about attempts to sort electoral ballots that marks in favor of her candidacy. Based on it, what can you tell us?
Well, we've seen that there are threats not only on her, but on other people and other politicians from the Citizens Revolution. We know that these groups have been allied in the past, if not up until this day, with the right-wing groups in Ecuador. They have been their strong arm, they have been their political arm, they have been their armed arm, if you will, to do these type of threats, and just to remove the military protection that she had, it's just another sign of how much, or how little rather, they care about democracy and ensuring that it's a fair game for all.
Well, thank you, Ramon, for the information. It was really fruitful for us and our audience too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thanks. And now let's take a very short break, but remember you can join us on our TikTok account at teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back. In Venezuela, Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez categorically denounced the threats made by the government of Guyana and its allies against the sovereignty of the country. The Vice President refers to the recent exercise announced between Guyana and the UK and the US. Rodriguez denounced that the actions of Irfan Ali directly threaten territorial integrity of Venezuela, and at the same time, she pointed out that the UK and the US are responsible for the territorial disposition of the eastern Guyana. She also alerted the population of the warmongering plans that violate the SALAG agreements in the region of a peace zone. U.S. citizens panic by following new tariff measures imposed by Trump's administrations. President Trump detailed that the acquisition of products not produced in the country will have a 23% increase, specifically vegetables, coffee, and other food items. In this sense, experts affirm that some customers could be buying honest sleep in articles due to uncertainty of the tariff impacts in the country. Tens of thousands of people from Serbia, Bosnia, and Kosovo mobilized for 3 consecutive days in support of the Serbian President Aleksandar Vucic. During the first 2 days of mobilizations in Belgrade, demonstrators supported the president under the slogan "Do not surrender Serbia," organized in response to attempts to destabilize the country and in rejection of foreign interference. Meanwhile, President Vucic urged the institutions to restore peace and order in the country. For context, the current anti-government protests, which have been going for at least 5 months, highlight the alleged outrage of the Serbian citizenry as corruption. The main motive of the extremist protests is to pressure the government of Aleksandar Vucic to meet for demands articled by the students. In Sudan, more than 100 citizens were killed and thousands injured after a new attack by the rapid support forces in the state of Darfur in the west of the country. Head of the health department reported that among the deaths are the health workers and employees of the relief international humanitarian organizations. Moreover, the number of victims of the conflict in Sudan has surpassed 20,000. Moving on, Israeli forces shelled Al-Ahli hospital in Gaza City on Sunday, leaving the facility entirely out of service. According to local media, 2 missiles launched by Israeli aircraft hit the hospital's main building, causing damage, massive destruction, and setting fire in critical departments of the health centers, including the emergency room, laboratory, and a pharmacy. The forced evacuation left many patients without access to emergency medical care. Al-Ahli hospitals serve more than 1 million residents in Gaza City, the northern district of Gaza. Its destruction represents a major blow to Gaza's already collapsing healthcare system, which has been under Israeli siege since the start of Israel's genocidal operations. The United States intensifies aggressions against Yemen with new bombings against the Technical Institute of Province of Al-Ahli in the southwest of the country. This is aimed at dissuading Sana's from supporting Palestine. The educational establishment was a target of at least 5 airstrikes in a new escalation of violence against the country. However, the humanitarian organizations have repeatedly warned that these attacks usually leave civilians victims and destroy vital infrastructures in a country already devastated by decades of wars and blockade. Israeli forces have launched a devastating airstrike on the Al-Ahli Vucic hospital in Gaza, destroying its emergency department, main entrance, and a stretch area for medical oxygen. This attack has rendered these hospitals inoperable, even unable to receive patients. Moving on. In Myanmar, the Water Festival is celebrated aims at the recovery efforts following the recent 7.8 earthquake that killed more than 3,000 people. Also known as the Tian Festival, this event marks the beginning of the new year in Myanmar and in other countries such as Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. Due to the death toll and the damage caused by the earthquake, the authorities urged the people to celebrate the Water Festival without musical events or traditional dances. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials, we're on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I'm from the south of Marmarrero. Thank you for watching.